What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Roman's Creative Academy. As always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
And today we are talking about something that has been extremely controversial in the industry, and that is how to ethically wholesale creative deals.
Absolutely. Biggest thing is a lot of people always ask us, is this legal? Are you supposed to be doing this? So on and so forth. Yes, it is 100% legal. If it wasn't legal, our attorney or title companies would never touch the deal. They would never even consider facilitating it. Now, go ahead.
So let's walk into that, right? What does wholesaling mean? And basically, your job as a wholesaler, and even if you're not a wholesaler, say you don't want to keep the deal, your job is to marry the two parties together, the seller and the buyer. Now, this is done in big commercial deals too. So it's not like it doesn't happen in different scales of asset classes. It does. So I just wanted to say that.
And assigning a deal just means that you are taking the contract you have with the seller or the person or the entity that is selling a property, and you are selling the paper, the purchase and sale agreement, to somebody else for a finder's fee.
Here's an interesting one that we just came across with one of our buyers. In our assignment forms, we do not allow further assigning off, right? For multiple purposes, but we just ended up doing a deal with an individual who ended up asking us for permission because, and you want to explain this a little bit, they were a part of a company, but then that person wanted to take it down for themselves, not with the company and their partners. So he essentially had to pay off the partners to get the deal for himself. So that is a one-off situation that can happen. And I wanted to bring that up because it's an interesting concept right there. It's not what we see normally.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of is it legal, like we said, yes, it's legal, but is it ethical, right? And just like Jay said, this is super controversial because in the industry right now, specifically creative financing, everybody is saying, oh, to get started in real estate or to get started in creative finance, the first thing you should do is get a deal under contract and assign it. One, you should not be doing creative finance without, if you're a newbie, without coaching, guidance, mentorship, anything. You can totally screw up the seller's life for a very long time if it is not handled properly. And two, you should not even think about assigning the deal if you're new and you have never done it before. Because again, if you do not know how to do certain things in the transaction, then you can also, like I said, screw up the seller's life. And that is where the unethical or the issues in the industry arise, is when you have a lot of new investors coming in thinking that they can do this and it's easy and there's no repercussions. It's easy and there's no repercussions. There are a ton of repercussions if you do not do it properly and you do not know what you're doing.
And also, a lot of questions is like, if I wholesale it, how do I protect the seller? I've been hearing and seeing all around, there's no such thing as protecting the seller. Yes, there are things to protect the seller, but there are also risks. And it's not just the seller, it's also the buyer. Now, let me break that down for you. There is paperwork that can be put in place, and we teach our students this, that yes, the seller doesn't have to go through as extraneous foreclosure proceedings, but they still have to go through some type of systematic process to get their house back.
And it's not overnight. You're going to see things in all over the internet, performance deeds on lose, all these different lingos and jargons where people are saying, you put this in place and the seller's good to go. That's BS. That's bullshit. It helps, but it does not resolve the fact.
And different states have different laws, right? It's not universal throughout. So if you don't have an attorney on your team, That's an issue. But besides that, if let's look at the buyer side of things, there is risk there. And I'll give you an example. What if the seller files bankruptcy, right? There are different forms of bankruptcy, and that's a whole nother conversation for us, but they can put that asset or that property underneath the bankruptcy. And like I said, the best thing that you can do as a wholesaler is just disclose all of the risks and try to mitigate things, but you cannot foresee the future,
And
right?
you need,
And
go ahead.
sorry, and that's whether you are the buyer at the end of the day, you don't know what's coming in the future for you or someone else.
You just need to have full disclosure with all parties. That is how you make it an ethical transaction. And you need to be fully disclosing all of the good and the bad that can happen. And with that being said, a lot of things, especially with newer investors, which is what we talk about, you need to have training, you need to have coaching if you are going to be doing these types of deals. Because if you don't know the ins and outs of it, you don't know how to explain the pros and you don't know how to explain the cons because you don't know what they are, right? And you're not allowing your seller to be fully educated, and same thing with your buyer. Now, we'll be honest with you. When it comes down to buyers, right, me and Jay do not work with new buyers. Me and Jay will not assign a subject to mirror wraparound mortgage deal to anybody who has not done one in the past. And we are going to get into here in a second on how do you properly vet your buyers. And it's nothing against new buyers, right? But I am not going to put my seller in a situation unless that buyer is my student or our student that we are teaching and coaching through the process. Other than that, if they are not, I can't rely on them to be able to protect the seller and do as good as they should.
So that leads into the actionable steps that you can take. Some of them you can take. We teach our students more in depth of what it is that we look for, what red flags, stuff like that. But start off by asking the potential buyer, like, hey, have you done a creative deal before? And if so, how many? Right?
Yep. And if they say yes, no problem. Can you please send me the most recent settlement sheets of you doing a mirror wrap or of you doing a seller finance deal that you have? And it has to be signed. So there's no forgeability, nothing like that. This is proof that they have completed and they do have some knowledge of going through the steps and of going through that process, right?
And then ask them, what are you looking to do with the property, right? What is your end goal? Does that align with the terms that you've negotiated with the seller? So, for example, if the deal is a good deal for a rent to own, maybe make sure that the rental comps actually make sense in that area and that their stars align, right? So that's another question you can ask them. And then lastly, ask them, what do they do for a living, right? That allows you to see and build rapport with them as to can they afford these monthly payments?
And that's what I was going to get through next is me and Jay, we always ask for proof of funds from our buyers, even if it's a $10,000 down payment plus closing costs. I don't care. I want to see your liquid funds because if you have just enough to close on the deal, you're making yourself flat dead, or that buyer is going to be flat dead broke after closing, meaning that how are they going to make the payments if that's all they have in their bank account, right? So if that's all they have in their bank account, you know that, one, they're new, two, they're probably not financially smart or sound, and then three, they're not going to be able to make those payments, and there's a high risk that they may default on your seller.
Which brings me into our last point for this video, and that is check out our previous video on exactly what documentation. Mike gave one away, which is proof of funds. What exact documentation we ask from our buyers when we vet them. It's one of our previous YouTube videos. It's a need to know one, so go check it out. We hope that this was helpful for you guys. And if you want to chat with us, further educate yourself on creative financing, we're more than happy to do so. If you want to ask us questions, make sure to check the link below and shoot them our way. And other than that,
as always, guys, if you like this video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe below, and we'll see you on the next one.
bye, guys.